This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody, thanks so much for joining me. I have a conversation with Chris Bell to share with you. Chris is the photographer who worked with artistic director Nigel Wingrove for Cradle of Filth from 1992 to 1997. So his work includes the iconic Principle of Evil Made Flesh and Vampire album covers, the controversial for the time, maybe it still is, Vestal Masturbation Nun t-shirt, some of the Dusk and Her Embrace sleeve photos, and many, many more images adorning Cradle of Filth merch throughout that era. Chris's images, well, they gave Cradle of Filth a real advantage when it came to merchandising. His photography combined with the music gave the band something that no other band had back then. There's a lot of detail in this chat, and I was sharing my screen over Zoom with Chris, so you'll see that on YouTube, and for those of you listening via the podcast apps, well, it's still a very engaging listen. Chris is an absolute gent. I got a lot out of this chat. The deeper I go into the Cradle legacy, the conversations, they are just so rewarding. So here he is, Mr. Chris Bell.
Thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. I really appreciate it.
No, that's fine. It's an honour. I think, I get so much interest from those images, and they were just a job years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote it down. 1992. That was shot.
92. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very important to people.
Well, yeah, I looked it up, and apparently, not long after that, the readers of Metal Hammer magazine voted it most iconic album cover of all time, which is a pretty good accolade.
Yeah,
I know it's a very specialist magazine. You know, it wouldn't have appealed to my mum, but it's a sort of it's an honour, you know, because.
No, it's lovely. It's lovely. And look, the thing is, I'm 44, so I was around back in those days, and the artwork, Cradle of Filth's artwork. Well, the music is one thing, of course. The music is the thing that attracted initially. I heard it on radio, but your photography allowed them to change the game with regards to merchandise. Now, I'm sure you've got some awareness of this, but heavy metal went through the doldrums effectively. In Cradle of Filth, there were a couple of bands, Cradle of Filth, Sepultura, were the leading lights for a period of time there. But your photography allowed the group to stand out in an era where there wasn't much going on for heavy metal, and your photography really helped create a new vibe, if you like, a new genre in a way.
Well, I'm thrilled that you say that, because to me it was a job, but I do like the imagery, though, I have to say. And it all came through a guy called Nigel Wingrove. I don't know if you've heard of him at all, but he was already doing he found that he could buy really cheap horror movies that nobody wanted. And we had this idea that we would release them as videos that people could buy. But he had a marketing. He said that we're going to shoot a new image for each film. We can't use stills from the film because they don't exist. Some of these films are like 1910, you know, like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. You know, I don't know if you know about horror movies, but it's a classic. You know, Nosferatu, another one, classic movie. So we shot images based on the movies, and they sold like hotcakes. And this is in the old... the big DVDs, the whatever you call them, the ones with the tape.
Yeah, gotcha, the VHSs.
And it meant you could get a good cover on it, you know, because they were a good size. And then when it went to CD, it wasn't so important because they were smaller. Yeah. But they really did sell. And, we were at one point, they sold so well that they were stacked. This might not sound a lot to you, but in, is it Waterstones, one of the big bookshops, they stacked them face on, not end on, and that was a big honour because it meant it took shelf space up, but it meant that they were selling like hotcakes. And it was sort of the colours that sold them, really, because the films are rubbish. Well, they were of their time anyway. So, but if you like horror movies, you'd love these films, you know. And then it moved on from there. And then somehow Nigel got involved with this band I'd never heard of called Cradle of Filth, and we did the same techniques, you know, took an image and based on what the band was about in this case, and just made it on the hoof, as it were. So
definitely
sort of worked.
Yeah, I've actually reached out to Nigel, but I haven't heard back from him. Right. I'd love to have a chat with him if this goes well and you want to sort of give a reference, mate, I'd really appreciate it. But
because I out of the blue, he still owes me money, by the way.
He's avoiding you.
But that was Nigel. But I don't know, I forgive him. I rang him one day out of the blue, and I still had his number, and he picked the phone and said, "Chris." Just like that. I hadn't spoken to you about 5-6 years or something. And I said, look, no, I'm not chasing the money. I just want to say, we're both getting older. We did some effing good work together. And, you know, you art directed, but I made it work. Yeah. And together we did some bloody good stuff. And he said, yeah, I know. It was pretty good days, wasn't it? And so in a way, I always have a soft spot for him, even though he does owe me a couple of grand somewhere, I think. But still,
the bastard.
But yeah,
Nigel, if you're listening, this pay up, mate. With interest.
No, I said to him, no hard feelings, because we did some work. In fact, one of the last things I did for him, I got home and my wife said, "You look like death," and no one believes this about fashion photography or anything like it. It's such hard work. Especially, you know, because Nigel would come with an idea, and we'd have there was a very good makeup guy called Spencer Horn, and he did makeup, and makeup always takes forever. I mean, it just goes. People arrive at 10, and by 1, you're just about ready to shoot because of makeup. You know, it goes on and on, but it works, and we all work together on it. And I don't know, it was just a really nice, happy time, really. You know, and we got some really good stuff, but it was very, very tiring, very exhausting.
I can imagine given the quality of the images.
Yeah, and it's very painstaking, because what seems small at the time, you realise as the photographer that is going to be a big thing. You've got to go with that idea. And sometimes things happen, because Nigel would come with sketches and everything, and it was all like great, and that would be the good start point. But then something would happen, and you'd think, geez, that's brilliant. Let's go with that, go with that, go with that. More of that, less of that. And it worked, on the day. And it was work. And that was one of the first covers, in fact, that Principle of Evil Made Flesh.
Yep.
And to be honest, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with that. And the lighting just worked. I don't think I've ever been able to reproduce it.
It's a stunning photo. It's a classic. Yeah. It's iconic. But did you have that done prior to the band asking you to do it? Nigel getting you involved, or was that something that came about through the association?
Well, no, Nigel, he knew the band, and he said, "Yeah, Chris, you know, we've been doing all the horror movie stuff, and we've got a new gig now. It's we've got this band in tow," and I didn't know they were. I guess it was quite early days. Was it 92? Did I say, or 90, whatever it was?
92, yeah.
I don't know when. Yeah, I don't know when they started exactly, but all I got was some very pretty girls and some great costumes, and then the lighting just fell into place. It just worked. And it was shot in, I had a smallish studio. Well, it's quite a good size, actually, but it was in North Kensington in London, which is now extremely fashionable, but then was a bit of a dump. But I had this studio, it was a sort of an old shop, but it was quite a good size, and we did it all there. And then as I got more and more work, bigger clients, I moved to a much bigger studio in Camden Town, which you may have heard of, part of London.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was on an industrial estate. It was like 1,700 square feet. It was massive. So we could build bigger sets. And I always pride myself, I could knock up a dungeon in an hour.
So that was all of your imagery. So if I can just do a bit of a resume, a bit of a roll call of the stuff that's out there that people will know, the 90s era Cradle of Filth fans, that a lot of the people listen to my show, for example. So we've already mentioned the iconic The Principle of Evil Made Flesh cover, and also the cover on the back of the CD and the vinyl too. The photography there. But you also did V Empire or Vampire, depending on how you want to pronounce it, or Dark Fairy Tales. Vampire or V Empire. You're also associated with that, according to a source online, anyway.
Oh, right. I don't know what people do with the images often. I don't always keep up with because I'm on to the next job and they use it. And I shoot it for the band, Cradle of Filth or whatever it was. And it goes and gets used. And sometimes it's used in several places. But, I don't really care. I always used to think that if you get a lot of mileage out of my imagery, they'll come back for more. If you know what I mean. I'm not the sort of guy I say, well, I shot it for an album cover. Now you've used it for something else. I want more money off you. I mean, I just said, look, you use it, And,
well, that's
so
an
where they
interesting.
ended up, a lot of them.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I've done studio work as a musician too, and you record stuff, and it's like, well, where does it go? I don't know, And but I might share screen quickly if that's okay. And the reason why I want to do that, I just want to make sure that just because the people who listen to my show right into this stuff, and they really want me to get it right. Now that I've got this opportunity to have a chat to you, so I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Well, it's gone. Oh, right. Yeah, I can see all that.
So
there's one or two of mine in there. I can see. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Vampire. Yeah. So this is all you.
A lot of it. I can't see them all. I can see the girl with the blue candles. I recognise that one. Top left.
I had that T-shirt. I love that image. I used to call her Nicole Kidman, a dark-haired Nicole Kidman.
Oh, there she is. Yeah, Cradle of Filth, Vampire of Dark Fairy Tales. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is all you.
In the studio. Yeah, that's me. And we're using things called gobos, which are I had really quite good lighting at the time, and I've still got it in my garage. I never use it, but it's all there. And you've got some metal cutouts, and you can project things like dungeons, bars, windows. It's all, trickery. And there's Principle of Evil I can see going through there.
Yeah, indeed.
That was shot black and white film, of course. This is way pre-digital, all this stuff.
Black and white film.
Yeah, stunning. That was shot. It's shot, I don't know if you know a bit about photography. It was shot on medium format Hasselblad camera, which were then what they used to call the Rolls Royce of cameras. They were Swedish. They were very expensive, but boy, they were bloody good. The lenses are Zeiss lenses, and they are just so sharp. And they pick up such fine detail. And I think that helps with the... and, of course, the images are square because the film is a square format.
Okay,
it's not usual 35 mil oblong shape. It's a square, 6 by 6 centimeters. And I've still got the original in a little studio here now. You can safely under lock and key.
You can buy. They're obviously prints, but you've when I say prints, you're actually redoing the photograph, aren't you, on your website for people to purchase?
Yeah, well, what I did with them, in the early days, of course, I had a darkroom and would print in the traditional way with chemicals. But now I invested in scanners, and I got a very good scanner, and I scan from the original negative. And in the software, you can turn it to positive, and it does fantastic quality. And I've got a printer which it just sounds obscene. It's got 12 inks, and each cartridge, I just bought some new ones, they're £77 each. That's 12 of them. So 12 times 77 to fill up the thing with ink is... they are quite big cartridges. They're 130 mil, but they're stunning ink quality. And I think you get better quality than really you could have done with traditional chemical film, to be honest.
Okay.
And because I'm scanning from the original negative, and then you can reverse that in the software to get positive and print from that. And it really does work. Straight back to the original negative as shot in the camera.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure all of the technophiles out there who follow you. I've done digital photography, so it's different to some of the wonderful stuff that you've been up to. But was Black Goddess one of yours as well? Was she yours?
What's that, sorry?
Was Black Goddess? I'm just sharing the screen now. Can you see
Black Goddess? Yeah, I can see. It looks like one of them. I can't see it. Can I? I can pull it up.
I'll see if I can make it a bit bigger for you. It's taken off the T-shirt, but all these
it's Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, there we go. Can you see it there?
I don't know about that one. It's had a lot of retouching, that one, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I mean, it might be the original, and they've done a lot of, retouching. on that one. But once they've got the image, they do what they want with it. Really, I'm not that fussy about it. So,
I get you. And this iconic photo here, this image here, that's one of yours as well.
Yeah, I remember the logo. Jesus is a whatever, and I did the shot on the cross for that. There was a little bit. That was about as tasty as it can possibly get, but it was. I suppose it got them noticed within that world. I don't know.
What's the story behind that one though? Was that something that did Nigel? I understand he had a lot to do with the artistic direction and the like, but was this Danny Filth or someone in the band giving you saying let's do this?
I'm really not sure. I think I had shot the image and in the studio, I think the girl was sort of crucified and they did all the words and stuff. And they love nuns and all that. It's all pretty tasteless, but in a way I'm not particularly religious, and it's powerful imagery, I suppose.
Well, it's still here. Yeah, I do remember 30 years later. 30 years later, can you believe it?
Yeah, I used to sort of dine out on the fact I'm the only photographer people got arrested wearing his T-shirt. So
so true.
But I don't think I brag about it too much these days. But a lot of those images do look familiar, I have to say.
What were your thoughts on that back in the day, though? That the kids were getting effectively. They were in fairly sketchy areas, like the equivalent of King's Cross in Sydney and London. I think it might be Camden. I don't know, but they're getting arrested in places where there's a lot of drug taking and a lot of other debauchery going on. Yet the T-shirt was the thing that attracted the police's attention.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's. I had no idea that was what they were going to put on that. So I'm sort of a bit innocent on that one, but it got them noticed, I suppose. And who knows what that world is about? As far as I can remember, they were all middle class boys.
Yeah,
I remember one of the band. I don't know if I should say this. He said, "God, I'm actually quite embarrassed if my mum finds out what this music's about." And I thought it was quite sweet, actually.
Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of them, and they're to a person. All of the musicians. Danny's a bit of a different character. He's obviously the leader of the group, but all of the musicians are just fantastic guys that I've spoken to.
Yeah, they were very nice, and I don't know. They had an image, and it worked for the fans and stuff, and they perhaps took it further than most of the heavy metal bands. I don't know, but it certainly. Do they still perform? Are they still?
Yeah, there's look. In my opinion, there's a version of the band going these days. It's not a legacy act at the moment, but it's close to a legacy act in that the band has never broken up, but they've cycled through. Last count, I think they're up to 40, 41, 42 tenured members, which is probably the most of any band currently still relevant.
Yeah.
So it's Danny is at the head of the band, and there's the 90s era still attracts a lot of attention from people of my era. Okay, the band at the moment doesn't really have anything to do with the band that was around back then. The people that you were associated with.
I know that on my website the images that sell are usually the heavy metal stuff. You got it there, yeah.
Yeah, look at this iconic photo here. I'll never forget seeing that on a T-shirt, the Cradle of Filth T-shirt. Just an iconic.
Do you know half those snakes were real?
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And you can even see a little bit of movement on one or two of them. There were some plastic ones put on to give it base, but that one going over her shoulder and one or two in the top were the real McCoy. And if you look carefully, there's actually slight little bit of movement on them. And
I can see the one around the neck, yeah.
Yeah, they were the real thing. And with some plastic ones, just for the real ones to sort of slither through. And how these girls put up with this stuff, I don't know. And if you look at the Python one, I don't know if you've seen Girl with Python is on that set there.
Yes, where is it? I have seen it.
It's there somewhere. Go with Python. Where's she gone? Oh, yeah, top right.
There she is, yep.
Yeah.
Did they use this one as well? I mean, it looks familiar, but I can't recall, to be honest. So
I'm not sure what they did, but that was a real Python. And it came with a handler. And during the shoot, it started to constrict.
Mm.
And that was a powerful, look at the size of that thing. And I don't know if he got a little bit tense or a bit frightened, and the guy ran over and sort of ripped it off her and said, can we stop for a bit here?
Sorry, my daughter's just running.
It started to compress. She went, oh, it's getting a bit tight.
Mm.
And that's a really...
I wonder why they didn't use it.
I don't know where it got used. I really don't know. Maybe on a T-shirt. I don't know. But what some of these models put up with, I mean, God, they say women are scared of stuff, but God, I couldn't do any of that.
I couldn't do it either. I mean, that's an amazing photo. I'll just bring this up here just so people can see it in the flesh. But I mean, it's just such a... It's an enduring image, this one really, isn't it? I mean, the flowers and everything. No band had used any image even remotely close to this ever before this.
Really?
No.
Well, as I say, there are style people involved, but the actual arrangement and lighting. In fact, I found a way of lighting it. I don't think I've ever been able to replicate. It's really weird. It just happened on the day. The lighting is actually coming from below more than anywhere. You can see the rather than the classic thing is have lights to the side or above, and it's sort of coming from below. And I think that gives it a sort of rather scary feel to it. But at the same time, it's very soft lighting. It's not hard.
Is that corn syrup? The blood effect?
Is it what? Sorry.
Is it corn syrup?
It's just stage blood, I think. Yeah. And my nickname for Nigel was More Blood Wingrove, because he'd say, more blood, and squirt more and more on. So, I guess he knew what he wanted. And but again, it was just stage blood. You can buy all that stuff from... Well, I think London's got a massive theatre district, and all that stuff is available in, which is good for photographers. You can get all sorts of props and things that the general public don't know exist. Wouldn't know where to get them. So,
do you recall anything about the Vampirotica label that Cradle of Filth launched? Because that looks like one of yours as well. There,
I can't remember that. Does look familiar. I don't know whether I can't really see it. Cradle of Filth. Can I?
Vampirotica was a label that they launched. It was very, very short-lived. See if I can bring that up. There we go. There she is.
Yeah. Does look familiar. It looks like one of my backgrounds, the grey with the dapple on it. Yeah, but again, what people did. It does. I think I remember seeing that girl with that outfit on something or other.
Yeah.
But it's great that they got a lot of use out of the images. We shot loads of stuff on the day, and if they got more use out of it, I used to think, well, great, they'll come back for another shoot. They're getting their money's worth. And
so is that right? They're all from one session, if you like, 1 8-9 hour period. You're able to get all of these images that they use.
Well, we did loads of shoots though. I mean, they were always at the studio at one point. Nigel doing stuff. So, but it did take a long time to get. Makeup took 2 or 3 hours. You'd never get shooting before midday, 1 o'clock, and then it would go on. And then away, Nigel got loads of stuff, and what they did with it, sometimes I've forgotten the shoot, but some of it looks familiar, some of it doesn't. Sure, they used other photographers at some point.
Well, it seems to be mimicking your work either way, though. I mean, that's the point. You set the tone very early on with Principle of Evil, and it's just carried on right up till just before Midian, I think.
Well, I think that was one of the first things I ever did for them, that one. That was the very first shoot I did for them. And it must have worked, because they certainly came back for more. And I sometimes look at stuff and I say, no, that's not my lighting. It's a bit crude.
You can tell.
But I really wouldn't know that.
This is stunning too. This one here. I always, as a kid, I remember looking at this and just the way you captured. You brought the theme over from Principal. It's almost like is this one of the same girls? Can you recall from Principal?
It looks very similar. It looks like it could have even done the same day because the gauze looks like a prop we had, and the flowers in the hair. It might have just been a little shoot. We did quickly do that, get that done, get it in the can. And I forgot all about it, but it looks like my work, I have to say. Because I do look at other work and I say that's not mine, it's a bit crude. Lighting, the lighting's a bit, don't know, a bit basic.
Yeah, not don't have
umbrella-like, I say. I call it umbrella-like, which is it's just too soft. I hardly ever used an umbrella. I used in the tray they call a fish fryer.
Oh, okay.
Which is like a big metal box with a perspex, which is much harder than an umbrella, but not really hard like a spotlight. and they're more expensive, but I was invested in good stuff, and it made a difference. Umbrellas are a bit amateurish, I thought. They can work, but not always. So,
what do you recall about this one here? This image here?
What one's this?
Dusk and Her Embrace.
Cradle of Filth, don't know any about that. That would have been massive. I've never went out on location with anything like that, I don't think. So
I don't think it is. I was looking at it. I think the tree is, but I think they've superimposed this business on the back. Photoshop or what have you here. But
I think it looks like a Photoshop job.
Yeah.
And I don't recognise that costume or anything. It's been cobbled together. I mean, it's fine enough, but I don't think that's anything to do with me, that one.
That's interesting because it is credited to you in various places online. So when I go into the wiki, when I went into the Wikipedia page, I'll just go onto the Wikipedia page and I'll show you what I've. This is the interesting thing is I don't know who updates Wikipedia. I mean, when I say I don't know, anybody can update Wikipedia, but your name is down here as being responsible for the photography.
Oh yeah.
So I got
Arlene Daly. I remember.
Yeah,
Arlene Daly. She was all alone. Nigel Wingraviego, art director. Simon Miles, he's another photographer. Salvador.
So Simon must have done the front, and you've done the back. I'd say. I think that's
I really don't know. Yeah.
Kit Walden, he passed away. I don't know whether you met him, but he passed away last year.
No, I don't think I met him at all.
Yeah.
I think Nigel Wingrove. I rang him about a year or two ago, and he's still, doing well. So
still doing his thing. There you go. Yeah, he's still got a pretty big entry here. You've got a good entry too on Wikipedia from memory. Hang on, I think.
Have I? No, I didn't know that.
I'm sure you did. Hang on, that's not there now, but I thought that's where I got. Yeah, but there's two of you. There's two Chris Bells that are excellent at photography. There's one in Tasmania and there's yourself. So
all right.
If people Google, I had to put Cradle of Filth after yours to pick it up. But this is Encyclopedia Metallium here. And this is a source that a lot of metal fans go to for their as a single source of truth. So so they've got photography cover, so they've got that quite right. But it's just I like the detailed photography, back or whatever it might be, back of the sleeve or whatever it might be, or the cover.
Yeah, because photographers can't work without art direction and people to arrange models and all that stuff. But at the final instant, when you've got the girl, the camera, the light, and you press the button, that's totally the photographer. And one fraction of a second either side of that moment sometimes just isn't that good. There is just how much you know about photography. There's a very famous French photographer, Henri Cartier-Bresson.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a reportage photographer, didn't do anything like we're talking about. But he said that in every photograph there is a decisive moment décisif, French, and one fraction of a second either side of that, it's not the same photograph. And he was, I think he's dead now, but he was a great. Anyone who's interested in photography has got to see his work, Cartier-Bresson. I'm sure any photography students would look at his work. He did all 35mm black and white, what we call reportage photography, and there's just wonderful images. And I think his entire body of work from a whole lifetime was about under 500 images. Shows you how difficult it is to get that sort of imagery. And I don't think he ever did studio work or anything like that. He was just a pure press photographer, basically, but taking it one step further. And but this idea, there's one fraction of a second that you press the button, either side of that, it won't be the same. And if that's a skill, then that's what you have to aim for as a photographer. You know? What was means total concentration all the time on the model and the way it's all working together.
I studied it at uni. I did 2 subjects for a journalism degree, and it was extraordinarily difficult. But these days, it's you're still using DSLR cameras as well, but it's actually morphing into these things. I don't know. You're probably horrified that it's going into iPhone photography and the like, but it's more as a journalist, you've sort of got to be in the moment and learn how to capture photography with the tools you've got at your disposal. This sort of thing. But for you, what was the catalyst? What was a compelling event for you to get engaged in as a career photographer?
I just fell in love with it. When I left school, I was would you believe, as a quantity surveyor. And I decided after a while I did not want to spend my life counting bricks, which is sort of what they do, really. They run the financial and the ordering side of a construction site, which was quite fun at first because you'd be out there with the lads measuring the work and all the rest of it. And as you got further up the greasy pole, you ended up more in the office. And the one thing I didn't want to do was be in an office. And I jacked it all in and got a job organising an arts festival, because the one thing quantity surveyors can do is organise stuff. And the Kensington and Chelsea Arts Council wanted to organise, and I did it, and in that period, I met artistic people, and I thought, I have found my people at last. And I think I bought a camera to record some of the projects we did, like street theatre and all sorts of stuff. And I fell in love with photography. I jacked that in and went to Ealing Technical College and did a 3-year course with a load of really boring old fogies, but boy, did they know how to print. And all that stuff. And I got that under my belt, and then I got a bursary to the Royal College of Art for 2 years. And that was all about fine art photography, and I learned a lot there. And and that was quite prestigious, I suppose. So I've got an MA, actually, in photography, for what it's worth. Oh, wow.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So it's... but I wasn't doing anything. I was doing landscape photography. But when you hit the real world, you got to make a living. So I did all sorts of stuff, and as you learn more and more, you get more confident, and ended up in the studio doing studio work for people like Nigel, among others. You know.
Well, you've got a great portfolio, of landscape stuff, and you've got the reportage stuff that you've been doing as well.
That's what I really love to do, is reportage photography, or as people now call it, street photography. I refuse to use it. I use the old-fashioned term reportage. So,
or reportage if you're a bloody Australian. There you go.
Yeah.
Never mind. Yeah.
I don't know if I can show you here a picture. If I hold this up, will you see it?
I think so.
Yeah, right. Hang on, let's put it back. This is a shot I did very recently in a shopping mall. And I don't know if there's an influence of... I don't know, I can't see what I'm actually holding up here.
I can see what looks like a lady in a burqa, I think it is, standing walking past a shop front.
Hang on.
But it looks...
Yeah, look at the guy. It's a sort of gaming shop. And there's this monster sort of mannequin in the window. And he looks like scary, you know. I don't think you can see it there.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. And she's walking, and I would see, if you just hang around, something happens. And a woman came by and she looked at me and like, there was this guy taking pictures in a shopping mall. And it sort of worked, but it's still that imagery of like really scary. It's a big sort of a mannequin in the window, advertising some sort of scary game. I don't know what it is, but it sort of worked as an image. And
but you're very good at taking photos of water as well, I've noticed.
Water, yeah, right. Yeah, if you look at the website, I guess there's stuff, and I still take pictures. We go out. We spend some time in the Lake District now, my wife and I, and go up there and take some landscapes, and or just whatever happens. I still prefer people, But for selling on my website, the thing that sells most is the heavy metal stuff, the erotic stuff, and then landscapes. People just like just pretty landscapes, I suppose. You can't blame them. You've got to stick something on the wall in your house. It's got to be something a bit pleasant. But I do get that image, Principle of Evil, does sell, and people seem to love it, and people often will. There was a guy in Austria bought one recently, and he sent me the picture. I'm so proud of it, hanging on his wall in his hall at home, because it's a great A2 image, and he's got it framed beautifully. He said, "I love it." Everyone remarks on it, and it's an original print signed by me and all the rest of it. So, but they're the ones people seem to like. So it's still a great following for that sort of imagery, I think.
And is it mainly Europe and North America and even Australia that you're sending the photos to? Yeah,
a lot of, I think the Germans seem to like all that imagery a bit, and Austrians for some reason. And of all the sales, I think very often it's the erotic gothic section, as I call it. And people tend to sort of go for that. So. But whether my wife approves, I'm not sure, but that's another...
Well, if it's paying the bills, I mean, let's face it. I mean, we've all got to turn a quick sum out.
I do it now. I mean, I've got a little studio in the garden there, and it's just got this printer and the Photoshop stuff and all that, and so it's not big enough to shoot in. But I can. If anyone orders a print, I can bring it up. They're already scanned, a lot of them, and make the print, and then post it off, and. But I did, I thought I was going to make a fortune. There's not many people buy it, just occasionally. So, but I don't mind really. So,
yeah.
But I still quite like shooting, and when I can.
Well, just with the gothic erotic stuff. I mean, I know that Ben worked with Stuart Williamson with Cruelty and the Beast. So after you, do you know why they didn't return and work with you again? Because they're on like a third. I know Vampire's an EP, but it's a bit longer than that. So really...
Oh, the band?
Yeah, Cradle of Filth. Yeah, do you know why their fourth album they didn't work with you?
No idea. I have no idea. I mean, I didn't think too much about it at the time. Maybe they fell out with Nigel. I don't know. I maybe that. And he was the go-between between me and them. I don't know. I really don't know. I know. I did see some of the images, and I thought it looked a bit crude. Dare I say it, a bit sort of in your face rather than a bit, subtle. But that's all I know really.
The contrasts are much greater with his photography than they are with yours. That's for sure. Yours are far more natural.
Yeah, I did see some work that they'd had done. It looked a bit, a bit fussy, a bit too fussy, a bit too in your face, and anyway, I moved on.
Well, it was all over. Yeah, it was all over by year 2000. By the time they released Midian, it didn't. I mean, the Midian album cover. There's plenty of people that disagree with me on this, but the album itself and the cover was night and day compared to the work that you did with them, and even what Stu Williamson did with them, and the merchandise just shifted as well. And a lot of fans have made that point with me over message services, Instagram and email and what have you. Said, hey, do you know where we can get these, Vampirotica? And it's all the stuff that you had a heavy hand in. And I say, no, I mean, you've got to go to eBay and buy them sometimes for $200. And I wish I had it. I had a bunch of T-shirts back in the day with your images, like I call it the Nicole Kidman shot. They all fade down. And
I had a load of T-shirts stuck in the cupboard in the studio, and I think I chucked a lot of them out. They went mouldy, and I've still got a few. I think I've got a T-shirt from the Rape of Europe tour, I think, which is probably quite a collector's item now. So I put that to one side. I thought, well, who knows? I might, sell it at some point, or just keep it as a memento at the time.
I just never understood why the band didn't continue on in the way the photography that you'd introduced to the band. And it was so successful from 1993, really. That's when the band started to become prominent. 1994, even, you'd probably say, to about 1999. That's when those images are so prominent. You couldn't go to a metal gig anywhere, any band, without seeing your photography on the Cradle of Filth t-shirts. But then they stopped it. Then they stopped doing it, and it was like, what happened? The band lineup changed. And the art direction changed as well. So it was like what I said up top about, you asked me the question about are the band still going. It feels like it's a very different band now compared to what it was, say, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Not like Iron Maiden, who virtually are similar, from 40 years ago.
Yeah, well, they don't go away. I mean, I'm still a big fan. When I was a lad, they were the biggest decision you had to make, whether you went with the Beatles or the Stones, and I was definitely a Stones person.
Good on you.
I guess although I have to say that the very first time I heard "Is It Love, Love Me Do," I thought, God, this is great compared with the awful schmaltzy stuff my dad used to listen to, Nat King Cole and all that stuff.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then when I heard the Stones, I think I've never been as shocked as when I watched a program called, was it 6-5 Special or something? It was on ITV, and the Stones were on, and they had shoulder length hair, and I was like physically shocked that anyone could have hair that long. It was this must be 1962, 3, 4. I don't know when it was, and now, of course, nobody cares what people have, but it was absolutely shocking in its day. And and they were a great band, and I still like them. But
they've got a particular energy. Yeah, it'd be great for you to work with them, but I agree with you. They've got a particular energy, the Stones, haven't they? They're a bit like U2 in that they can release bloody awful albums, but when you go and see them live, you're like, wow, they've still got it.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes I'm sort of feeling a bit bored. I will go on. I mean, if you've not seen it, it's 1997 St. Louis, the Stones doing "Miss You," and it goes on for about 15 minutes. And there's a saxophone solo in it. It's just makes your blood tingle. And the Stones are very good at holding it back. Just when you think it's going to go, they know they wait a bit longer. And by the end, Jagger is just brilliant. He's got the audience absolutely hysterical, waiting for this thing to go. And then when it goes, wow, it's easy on YouTube. 1997 St. Louis.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's really good. And
he's quite so unusual. Set. Yeah, but he's so unusual, Mick Jagger, because what is he? He's almost 80, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And he's got the body of a 21-year-old. He's a little guy. He's a little strong constitution, but he keeps all of his energy ready for the stage. And I know he's a martial artist as well. So, but I don't know how the heavy metal fans would like the Stones. They probably think it's all old hat, or I don't know too much about the modern move, the modern scene, really. It's fairly open-minded. You'd be surprised these days. I mean, I've got a huge Pink Floyd collection, and I've got a huge jazz collection, John Coltrane and stuff as well. And metal the thing about metal is there's a community with metal, and there's not as much of a community with other genres of music. You couldn't say there's a funk community. There might be a funk community of musicians, and I'm a bassist myself, so I'd love that. But it's the fan community in particular, especially the musicians themselves who are fans, they're a very unique breed, very fantastic people. I think most of the people that I communicate with are musicians as well. So they people who have skin in the game are very interesting to talk to, and I think you'll find that they'll like this part of the chat. Talking about the Stones, and a lot of us don't like the Beatles. Believe me, I can't stand them. I can't listen to them.
Beatles now they're dated really a lot.
Absolutely,
but but the Stones are still in there going, and great musicians, and very sad that Charlie Watts passed away, but they seem to have dealt with that, and it's. They're still there. So,
it's like AC/DC, it's as long as Angus is still there, the band's just going to keep chugging along, which I think is wrong, by the way. I've been reading
but out of interest, are the Cradle still doing gigs and still big? I mean, because I don't know what they're up to, really. Do they still perform?
Still performing. They tour everywhere. But when I say it's really, Cradle of Filth a long time ago morphed into the Danny Filth show, if you like. So Daniel Davey, was the singer. So it's so common within bands for that to occur. It can be the guitarist or the singer usually, but with a band like them, it long ago morphed into that. But it's a pantomime insofar as literally if you were to average it out, it'd be something like every eight months or something like that, a band member turns over. And
really?
And I got to know some of their members quite. I do know. I knew Stuart Anstis, who unfortunately passed away last year. Lovely guy. You might have probably interfaced with him. Very tall guy, and the guitarist, and Paul Allender, the other guitarist as well, who wasn't in the band with Stuart.
Because often band members did come to the shoots. They were interested in what you were doing. Danny was always there, and then other guys, and they were around. You'd chat to them. I didn't really know, but they were interested in what was, the imagery that we were making at the time. So it was quite important.
Danny's done really well for himself from the perspective that he's kept the band on the road and going. It's just whether or not, as a fan, you want to keep tuning into what he's doing. And, some bands keep their shit together, like the Stones, and Cradle of Filth really hasn't. It just doesn't have the same vibe as what it had in the 90s.
Yeah.
And part of that's completely understandable because Danny doesn't write music. So he relies on people to come in and write the music for him. And I know that because I've spoken to all of the musicians, and I tend to find that's the case. Like these bands might not be familiar, but Morbid Angel, for example, have had a lot of member changes too. But the bloke who writes the music has been in there the whole time. So there's a thread through the entire career, the 35-year career. From the debut album to the last release, it sounds kind of similar. Cradle of Filth, it's not like that. It's Danny's voice has changed a lot, and the bloke John Kennedy, who I think I'm trying to get him on the show actually, but rumor has it he's the internet forums saying that he's the guy who introduced the Banshee shriek. You might recall at Cradle of Filth, Danny used to use a lot, and so it was. I'm trying to get John on to sort of confirm that. And but there one thing I've always found with the Cradle alumni, all fantastic people, all so easy to talk to, like the chat we're having now, and very willing and forthcoming to tell me things. And they know that I'm genuine, and I'm just trying to get, trying to share information, if you like, because I'm a journalist. I'm a qualified, I say qualified, I went through uni and became a journalist. So I've always had that intense interest, if you like, in certain things. And Cradle of Filth just seems to have such a rich history, and you're a significant part of it. So that's why this chat's so great.
Well, it's nice to know. I mean, because as I say, one did the shoot, and I have to say the images were successful. I was proud of them, and they worked. And we shot loads, and so there must be loads more out there. I mean, because it was the days of film, I do have all the negatives. So I would give a print for that's the way it worked in those days. Now, because you would upload the file, digital file, and people got it that way. But then it was, you would shoot, process the film, make contact sheets, send those off, and then they'd choose what ones they wanted, and then you make prints, and that went, and then you gave them a real good print that they could scan for the T-shirts or whatever it was, or album covers. So it was quite a different way of working then. And,
well, I'll just plant the seed on that. Oh, sorry, you go. Yeah.
No, that's all right. Carry on. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll plant the seed on this one. Look, I know the fans, the people that are into the era that you were so much of a significant part of, I can't tell you how much they'd appreciate if you would release a lot of those images in a coffee table book, if it was financially viable for you to do it, and you got the energy and the inclination. But I mean, those images I've said it a few times, they're iconic, but it's beyond that. They're really important to us because they're such a significant part of our youth, and something that's
because it must. There must be loads of images that were sort of outtakes. They weren't used for an album cover or anything big, but they are still around. And of that, on my website, the erotic gothic section has got a lot of them, but there's loads more that sitting in folders in there.
Well,
in fact, it's interesting what you.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to make another look, fans love it, and because it's you, right? I mean, you're the guy. We know it'll be done right. We know you're not gonna do it badly. I mean, I bought a bloody Motorhead vinyl the other day, and it's nothing to do with Phil or Lemmy or Mickey or any of those guys. It's absolute garbage. I mean, it's not even 180 gram vinyl, and it's been $150 Australian for it. So what's that, about 70, 80 quid? But it's all this live crap in it. But who cares? Like, I mean, I can listen to all of that on YouTube anyway. I've got a good vinyl player here behind me, just over here, which sort of buried underneath everything. But it sounds fantastic, and that's where we get annoyed as fans, is when the actual original creator has nothing to do with the stuff that's brought to market. And in your case, you've got all of these incredible images that are filed away, but for the fans, I can tell you. Chris,
well, I mean, they can buy them. Actually, maybe I should put more up on the website, because they've got loads more, and I do that. But it was just weird because it always seems to me that heavy metal or metal music it's not exactly secret, but it's never in the mainstream, and one forgets that it's still really, really popular. I mean, earlier this last summer that went. I live now in near the coast in a place called Kingsdown, and looking out here, I can see the sea. But just out of the back of the garden here, there's a really old church, and I had my camera with me. It's the last summer, and there's a guy sitting in a t-shirt, a bit like yours, and he had a couple of cans of beer with him, and I thought, this looks like a shot. A heavy metal guy with all the gear and a church in the background. I could see a shot there. So I went up to him and said, I love the T-shirt. And I said, it could be one of mine. And he said, why? Who are you? I said, well, I did some stuff for Cradle of Filth. Yeah, them, and who are you? I said, Chris, I'm your biggest fan. This is completely I'm your biggest fan, man. Oh, God, can I, you got anything? Oh, I'd love. So I did him a small print of that image. I took it back, and he was always down on his luck. He had a few cans of beer with him, and he's such a nice guy. And in fact, the church warden, who was a neighbour of mine, was letting him stay in the church.
Oh wow, that's lovely.
That's how sort of kind people are around here. Yeah. And I said, oh, I've met this guy. He said, oh, is it Tom? I said, yeah, Tom. He said, oh yeah, we let him stay in the church. He can wash up in use the toilet there and everything. And he was so grateful. It was like you'd given him gold, and it was so sweet. And so I went back and I gave him a calendar and an original print from the Principle of Evil. I knocked off a 10/8 print from him and signed it. He was happy as Larry.
Would have made his year, or something like that. I mean, everything else aside, I mean, that random act of kindness from the actual creator of the image would, it's something that, I mean, he's got a story now he's probably told 1,000 times over.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But he was just a nice guy, and he was sleeping rough. He looked neat and tidy, and, he's looking after himself. And so there's a few cans on the side there, but who wouldn't if you're sleeping rough, So.
Oh, look
but
at
anyway,
that.
Quite interesting, I thought, to just bump into someone like that. And he had one, I don't know if it was my T-shirt, but he had a Cradle T-shirt on and stuff.
Yeah. Does it surprise you, though, that fans, I mean, I can't think of another band where the band's photographer, meaning you're not actually in the band, but you've done photography work for the band, is known. Okay, so fans know.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. This is all news to me, to be honest. Because it was just a job at the time. And but I was very proud of some of those pictures, particularly that principle of it just worked, that image. And how it happened is a mystery to me, really. But it just worked. The lighting and the models and the set, the props and everything worked. So,
well, the V Empire one, the Dark Fairy Tales and Palestine one, I think is iconic too. I know a lot of people have commented. I've talked about that a lot on the show, and people said, "Yes, I had that T-shirt as well," and that was a highly sought after T-shirt. That one.
Yeah. Again, I think I chucked a load away from when I moved from my last studio. They were thrown up in a cupboard, and I think a lot of them got mould on them, and I chucked them. Yeah, really, I should have kept them, but I've got a few still in the garage.
Unless you press them and put them into some airtight thing, they never last. I've found that too. I used to collect band T-shirts, and they all without even wearing them, they become really thin. And you're like, what on earth is going on here? And this is away from Silverfish, and Australia, we don't have too many issues like that. Well, not where I'm from anyway. So they just deteriorate.
Yeah, they do. And but I just thought it was good. The Rape of Europe tour. I thought that was a good name.
very Cradle of Filth from the period. Put it that way. Designed to offend. Put it that way.
But what always amazed me, they're all nice middle class boys. Quite well spoken. As we say in England, and it's and I think a lot of the fans. I often see like a group of lads and they got the long hair and all the gear on. And when you hear them talking, they're not talking sort of like, all right, mate, how you going? They're sort of quite middle-class, educated young guys, and I always found that quite interesting about metal music. It seems to attract people with a little bit more going for them, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can't generalise, but...
No, it's tough it's hard to generalise, isn't it? But certainly from my experiences talking to people on the YouTube channel, with Facebook and all of that sort of stuff, I've had some problems with the forums. They're not like some of my hot takes, but I don't care about them. I mean, they're not. I don't find they're as invested, if you like. They just like to comment and like to shit stir, excuse my language. But the people who contact me directly to a person, it's just been fantastic. And then that's from Iceland to Britain to the United States, Canada. Rarely from Australia. I have bugger all listeners here in Australia, which is really weird, but. Most of the people that listen to the show are from Europe and Britain, Europe and North America, and the comments that I get, they're just so supportive, and they know the work that I'm doing here, which is expanding the Cradle of Filth conversations. That's what I've put them up on my website, and they know what I'm trying to do here, so they're very supportive of it, and it's just a case of. It's so, with the Cradle of Filth thing, for example, there's just such intense interest in that period that you're a part of that everybody that was an engineer, producer, even people who'd been in the band for, say, just a tour, this sort of thing, people want to hear what they've got to say. So there's something special about what you're a part of.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome to give us a plug, chrisbellphotogallery.com, if you're on your website. That would be nice, and you might get a few people who want to buy an original print. So I'm more than happy to do that. They're not too expensive.
No, they're quite reasonably priced, really. I had a look beforehand. I had so they're one-off. They're one-off made to order, as it were. I don't just print them off because the materials I use are so expensive, and you can't just print them off hoping someone will buy them. You just have to do it as and when. So they'll still be there in 20, 30 years' time after you bought them, rather than faded down like a lot of other stuff we've done. Yeah,
well, they're all scanned. The negatives are scanned, and the original negatives are always there, so I can always go back to them. And I should perhaps go through and see if there's any more images undiscovered in there and bung them on. But I don't know. I just like to get on and take new shots now, I think, more than anything. So, do you think you've got enough stuff? I mean, you're very welcome to get in touch again at some point in the future if you want to. But
I've got plenty. No, but thank you. I'm just really thrilled that you accepted the invite. It's just fantastic. I knew it would be a great chat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's it's nice to people appreciate the work. You know, so a lot of the stuff I did was like annual reports and things like that. You know, I used to say I spent like 40 years photographing men in suits and girls in frocks, and sometimes without frocks, and that was the good bit.
We can thank Cradle of Filth for that. Yep.
Yeah, it would be the Cradle of Filth stuff. Yeah, and that was good fun. Well, it was all good fun, really. And, but it's nice to be in a job that's sort of vaguely creative, even if it's trying to make some jowly, overweight businessman look vaguely normal. Yeah. So it's still a skill, I suppose.
But the other thing too, and I'll leave you with this one here, your work will endure well after you've gone. And that's really important. That's something that I think I've even said it to the guys in Cradle. It's well after you've gone, there's going to be kids, God knows how long into the future, they're going to pick up this music and they're going to see your images, and it's going to lift, you know, these might be isolated teens or teens that don't quite fit in or whatever it might be, or sometimes, you know, where they do fit in or whatever, but it's going to give them a lift. And that's what it did for me as a kid in a boarding school. You know, I remember listening to it and going, you know, I got into Cradle just after I left, I should say, 1996. When I sort of, 95 was when I was aware, but 96, so I was just first year out. And I can tell you, mate, it meant a lot to me, you know, the imagery, the music, the whole lot, you know, and I didn't have much else going on as a young man, you know, still trying to figure life out. And you see this stuff, and I know that is a story that's repeated again and again and again.
Well, I'm honoured. Thank you very much. And if you need anything else at any point, just give us a bell.
No worries.
No pun intended there.
No pun intended.
Give us a bell.
Yeah, we'll do. No worries at all.
All right. Well, give my regards to all your fans and people and yourself. So
it's been magnificent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
What a magnificent chat with a very nice fella, Chris Bell, the album and merchandise photographer from 1992 to 1997 for Cradle of Filth. Awesome, fantastic. I am reaching out to all sorts of people that are, collectively speaking, in the web of filth, let me call it that. All of the ex-members, the engineers, the producers, the photographers in this instance, all part of the web of filth. I want them to come on the show and share their story, how they worked with the band or what their experience was. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there are much more to come. Go across to scarsandguitars.com, click on the Cradle of Filth Conversations link. There are already almost a dozen conversations posted for your listening pleasure. So that's it from me. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. I have released a book and there is some more information about the book that I want to share with you. But for now, I want to bid you a fond farewell, and until next time, have a good one.
This is Eric Rattan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew Mackay-Smith.
I've been the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast since 2017. The first musician I interviewed for the show was David Vincent from Morbid Angel, and things have just snowballed from there. In all, I've posted almost 650 podcast episodes featuring conversations with many of the leading lights of rock, heavy metal, and beyond. It just got to a point where I thought, I need to write a book about all this, so that's exactly what I did. In Scars and Guitars Volume 1, you'll read a heap of deep reveals and commentary, such as Des Fafara talking about Coal Chamber and why the band will never return.
You know, if you're a band just starting out, you need to hear me. Do not start a band with partners. Ever.
Yeah, wise words there. Sage advice, mate, for anybody.
Don't ever, because I can't go do Coal Chamber right now unless I get others involved.
Phil Anselmo talks about the episode in his career which gives him the greatest sense of accomplishment.
I think the staying power of the fans and the staying power of the songs, you know, whether it's Pantera, Down, or Superjoint, the fans remember the songs.
Alex Skolnick from Testament confirms that, yes, playing the guitar in Ozzy's band is anything but an ordinary gig. Will Silent Oz from Dimmu Borgir write a book? Pa from Sabaton gives advice to people who want to start a band.
Look at the team around you, look at the bandmates. If the guys want to be on the stage, then it's all cool. If the guys want to be backstage, then it's not gonna be cool.
Current and former members of Cradle of Filth discuss the band's seminal 90s material. Read about the reaction to George Lynch and Mark from Suicide Silence's comments when they throw shade at then President Donald Trump.
We have this idiotic monster, this egotistical, self-aggrandizing, complete piece of shit in there. I just can't understand how we've gotten to this place.
And yeah, we kicked a hornet's nest with Sepultura. Percussive overlord Gene Hoglan talks about recording with Chuck Schuldiner.
Chuck was always, he was very, very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had.
Phil Campbell from Motorhead discusses what it takes to get sober. John Five answers his critics who dismiss his tenure with Marilyn Manson.
My name is John Five, and Manson gave me that name, and I had some of the best years of my life in that band and learned a lot.
And we get the lowdown on Treyarch Zagtoth from those who would know, including his mother. All across Scars and Guitars Volume 1, there are moments of tension, relief, tragedy, exhilaration, and throughout it all, you'll obtain insight that I believe no one else has managed to obtain from many of your favourite artists. So treat yourself. Scars and Guitars Volume 1 is currently available as an ebook with a print edition on the horizon. Follow the links attached and download a sample. I'm sure you'll be compelled to read the whole book.